Hi, my name is Cloud, and for today's video, I'd like to talk about one of my favorite game series, Fire Emblem. I'll go over a brief history of the series, what I like about it as a whole, some critique, and what I'd like to see in the future, as well as a few character highlights.
Yes, King.
You're probably thinking, what the heck is so fun about Fire Emblem, right? Well, Patrick, you sure have been living under a rock, bruh, because it's the best-selling JRPG strategy game of all time. Fire Emblem is a pioneer in the JRPG strategy game genre and introduced various gameplay elements unique to the genre that are standard to this day. Fire Emblem is a JRPG strategy game series developed by Intelligent Systems and published by Nintendo. The first Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, released in 1990 on the Nintendo Famicom. From there, 7 total mainline games were released up until 2002, with the Game Boy Advance release, Binding Blade. The series was exclusive to its native country Japan until a worldwide release of its 8th mainline entry, Blazing Blade, in 2003. Though, this wasn't the first time Western audiences had seen a Fire Emblem character. Just 2 years prior, in 2001, 2 Fire Emblem lords, Marth from Shadow Dragon and Roy from Binding Blade, were introduced as playable characters in Super Smash Bros. Melee. By the way, if you played Melee as a kid, you're old as f***. Their appearance in Smash is commonly credited to helping bolster the series to an international stage. With the release of Blazing Blade overseas, Western gamers were first welcomed to the series by Lyn, a friendly Sakaean girl, also one of the 3 lords of the game. Players were introduced to the general gameplay mechanics and story narrative style of the series through her tutorials and story chapters. Several other games were released internationally thereafter, including the first 3D console game of the series, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, and its sequel, Radiant Dawn. Although the seas of Tellius were quite rough for many years. Even though Fire Emblem became an international franchise, due to poor marketing and sales, the series almost went under, with Fire Emblem Awakening intended to be the last game in the series in 2012. To the surprise of many, especially the hardworking game devs, Awakening was a commercial success and reawakened interest in the series as a whole, gained new fans, and marked the beginning of a new era of Fire Emblem. Hooray! As of 2025, the series comprises of 17 mainline titles, including 3 remakes and 5 spin-off games. The 2019 game, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, has sold over 4 million copies worldwide, making it the most sold entry to date. And to top it all off, the phone app game Fire Emblem Heroes, which launched in 2017, has nearly $1.3 billion of lifetime revenue as of 2025, making it Nintendo's most profitable phone app game, bruh. That's a pretty big deal for a game franchise. Anyways, in a nutshell, Fire Emblem is an amazingly fun and successful game series that appeals to the nerdiest of JRPG strategy nerds, me. I can make a whole video just on gameplay mechanics alone, so I'll spare you that for now. But the general gist of the series is based on turn-based combat on a grid system, with different classes, occasional weapon triangles, and general tropes from most JRPGs, including dragons, magic, evil demons, politics, and a little hee-hee-ha-ha here and there. Though let's be real for a sec, the reason peeps like me play these games is for the hot characters we get to play as. Fire Emblem games feature a wide cast of playable characters that you command on the battlefield. In most entries, you can even have your characters fight next to one another to build affection points. Again, depending on the game, it can lean to be either a bit wholesome, cute, or maybe even overdone and way too fanservice-y. I mean, Ephraim, you can S-rank me any day, bruh.
Yeah.
Every Fire Emblem game introduces a new cast, kinda like a new generation of Pokemon each time. Speaking of different casts, in my personal opinion, Fire Emblem entries are similar to the numbered Final Fantasies. Each game has its own fandom. Of course there are fans of the series in general, including yours truly, though most Fire Emblem fans will be able to tell you which one is their favorite. Can you guess which ones are mine? For example, take a look at 3 Houses. The whole different characters in each class house thing just screams fanfiction. Don't even think about looking up 3 Houses fanfics, because you'll never have time to read anything else ever again, Patrick. Aside from the characters and support system, what I like most about the games is the unique storytelling elements and narrative styles. Most of the games are formatted to be about under 30 chapters of gameplay with side quests and paralog maps. Okay, a quick little break here. Do you remember a little earlier how I was hinting at my favorite in the series? Well, give me a sec to convey my absolute undying devotion to the Tellius games. I'm also a huge fan of Shadows of Valentia. Anyways, Tellius had such great storytelling, albeit a bit hammy at times. Well, actually, there was a lot of ham at times. Plenty of subtext too. And Valentia had a really strong romance story that would put your grandma's soap operas to shame, bruh. Speaking of Tellius, we can't fail to mention Ike, one of the best lords in the entire series. Besides being the beefiest of beefcakes, with one of the biggest Twinkie glow-ups of all time, he is also one of the most unique backstories, character supports, funny moments, and general themes. He stands out as one of the strongest characters in the series, both as a playable character and as a protagonist. Really, he's just a chill guy. Unless he's the topic of an almost 2 decades old shipping war of who his bae is. By the way, his strategist Soren is my favorite character ever. Soren has one of the best written backstories in the entire series, a lot of subtext with Ike, and a lot of blink and you'll miss it context clues about his lineage. But we will not be going down that dark road today. Okay, that was fun and all, but let's get into some critique and some hopes I have for the future of the series moving forward. As mentioned before, I really appreciate the support system in most of the games. Though, since Fire Emblem Awakening, a common criticism I see online is modern games have become too fanservice-y, or a little too much like a harem dating sim. On that same note, newer fans of the series say that they like those elements, so it's not necessarily something that is bad, but it has definitely created a divide within the general fandom in my opinion. Remember, each game has its own fandom. There are so many Three Houses specific fans, for example, who will go down with their ships. This could just be my personal preference, but I appreciate more meaty storylines that are a little bit less dating sim oriented. As such, I like character supports that expand more on the story, or maybe go a little bit more in depth on a concept, or even a relationship between characters. I do appreciate the funny, lighthearted supports as well, though I'm not really into the ones that are a bit shallow and one-noted. I'm looking at you, Goldmary. Although kudos to you, girl, you go get your bag. I enjoyed the older Game Boy Advance games, Tellius and Shadows of Valentia, as well as Awakening, because the supports felt believable. There was more emphasis on the hidden information you wouldn't know otherwise, unless you had 2 specific characters interact. And locking it behind limited amounts of support conversations made replaying the games more fun, so as to obtain the missing pieces. My bias is showing, but a great example of this is Ike and Soren supports. So much information and clues to Soren's past can only be obtained when you have both of them support one another in Path of Radiance, which is then rewarded in the sequel game if you transfer over that bond. Now, let's go over some critique I have for the series, starting with self-insert protagonists. I understand that Fire Emblem Awakening was partially successful due to players being able to customize Robin to their liking. Though criticism I have for self-insert characters in the series is, it makes support conversations feel really one-sided. This is most evident with Corrin and Byleth's supports. I personally think it can be distracting from a narrative lens, and makes interactions with other characters feel sometimes forced, and in Byleth's case, makes it seem more like they are giving therapy to the characters that they're supporting. In Corrin's case, some supports felt generic, and it was hard to distinguish what Corrin's exact personality was because they molded to fit whatever role they needed to for each character that they interacted with. Just a personal preference, but I don't really like having a self-insert version of myself to be a main character in a game. Now let's get into some storytelling and narrative critiques that I have for the series. This is just my opinion, but most of the modern games since Awakening have lacked, impactful stories. Keyword there, impactful. I didn't say bad. With the exception of Shadows of Valentia, which is technically a remake with expanded story. So, for example, I wouldn't say that Fire Emblem Engage had a bad story necessarily, but it definitely lacked depth and character connection for me to care enough to remember what it was all about. Alear is some kind of divine dragon? Haven't we done that before? Another critique I have is there's just a general lack of merch, bruh. Like, I want to support this series because I love it so much. I need more merch. I'm a collector. I want to show my support. Give me things to buy. If we take a look at Pokemon for a sec, most of their profit is actually from merchandise versus game sales. Think about it. If Fire Emblem was able to sell more marketable goods, just think about how much money they could make. I think Fire Emblem has the potential to have a brick and mortar type of store, kinda like the Sailor Moon store in Japan. Another critique I have is, the games have lost a sort of relevance factor. Let me clarify. Between game installments, does a series present itself in a way that has strong brand power? Aside from online forums and discussions and, I don't know, maybe the occasional cosplay meetups at anime conventions, Fire Emblem in between games is really quiet. Aside from updates on Fire Emblem Heroes, which we all know is the moneymaker of the family. Whereas Pokemon can sustain content in between game installments with raid battles, event Pokemon giveaways, anime updates, spin-off games, merch releases, etc, etc, Fire Emblem seems to go really silent in between releases. And we really need to change that. I'd really like for the series to continue growing and gaining new fans, as I believe this series has a very unique magic to it. In order for it to grow, there needs to be some kind of general content that can appease most fans to help us keep the fire going for new installments. Get it? Fire Emblem. Okay, just let me have it. Having the ability to command an army that you personally get very attached to and would feel really sad if one of your units died is a very unique experience. I really enjoy getting attached to the characters, giving a damn about the story, and just generally enjoying the strategic gameplay mechanics. On a different note, did you know that there are Fire Emblem expos in Japan? I'd very much like to go to one someday. If you didn't know, it's an entire convention dedicated just to Fire Emblem. I have some exclusive merch that I've purchased secondhand that were from those conventions. It would be cool to see if Fire Emblem can attain a level of global popularity where there can be more themed conventions, even outside of Japan. By the way, going back to merchandise really quick, more expos, more conventions, maybe more exclusive merch. See what I'm thinking? Again, intelligent systems, merch can really help here. Give me a Fire Emblem toaster! I think it's pretty evident at this point in the video that I absolutely love this series and I want to continue seeing it grow. As of 2025, Fire Emblem has been around for more than 3 decades now and will soon be 40 in 5 years. I have high hopes for the series moving forward, and I would like to share some ideas I have for it. I do appreciate the series introducing new mechanics to change things up in each game. As mediocre as Engage was, story-wise, no one can argue against its amazing gameplay and strategic strategies. On that note, while still retaining its core elements, I'd like for Fire Emblem to take inspiration from other similar games, like Triangle Strategy, Unicorn Overlord, and Final Fantasy Tactics. Speaking of tactics, it's getting a Duo remastered port later this year, which I am looking forward to. It would be really cool to see an intelligent system spin on some of these games' elements, or apply them in some way to have a really unique, standout mainline game. Though, I'd still like for Fire Emblem as a series to do a little more identity exploration, and really hone in on the formula that has worked for so many decades now, with proper refinements and room for creative growth. A question I find myself pondering on is, what areas can the series grow and evolve with their audience over time? Three Houses had good storytelling, but in my opinion tried to take on too much all at once, and made the game feel a bit too cumbersome for my liking. Whereas Fire Emblem Engage probably has one of the best combat mechanics and map difficulty in the entire series, it felt short of an engaging storyline, and it had less than memorable one-noted characters. Maybe for the next installment, we need something that combines the best of both worlds, the storytelling and characterizations of Three Houses, and also the gameplay and exciting content of Engage. Like most series, innovation is key to future installments, though we can't let go of elements that make a series distinct from another, right? There's something that definitely distinguishes a Pokemon from a Digimon after all, and it's not just artistic design choice. A good question the game developers and us fans can ask is, in essence, what makes Fire Emblem, well, Fire Emblem, and not some other JRPG strategy game? If Fire Emblem can honor its roots and make room for innovative ideas, I'm confident it will continue to succeed. Maybe, just maybe, the series needs a game that has the same impact that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had on the masses, you know? Hey, if Zelda can do it, so can Fire Emblem. Oh, by the way, game devs, if you were ever to come across my video here, I have an idea for you. I came up with a concept for a 4-way online battle Fire Emblem game. It kinda plays like a game of sequence if you're familiar with that. Players could create their own custom armies and work towards an objective, either eliminating the other 3 players on the map, or being the first to seize a throne, etc. Imagine if there was competitive online play for this. I feel this would be a great step for innovation and introduce competitive play to the series. Just throwing it out there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and tap that bell icon like you're door dashing some Taco Bell, bruh. By the way, I also live stream here on this channel, as well as on Twitch and TikTok. Be sure to check out my live stream sometime. I guarantee you'll have a lot of fun. I'll see you in the next one.